Hey, Vaughn.
Hey, Kim, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Well, we are welcoming everyone to our podcast, But First Football. And I am Kim Beal, First Lady of Football Fandom and Fashion, here with Vaughn Parker, our resident local football phenom. And Vaughn, there's so much to talk about.
Yes, there's a lot.
There's so much to talk about. Um, so first, I'll just give my little buck shout out and we'll just get it out of the way.
Get that out.
We'll just get it out of the way. But did you know that 44 of our 53 players on the roster were drafted through the Bucks organization?
Oh, really?
Yes. And I
Oh,
just, once again, am going to say nobody appreciates us. Nobody appreciates Jason Light for what he really does to build this team. And yes, I realize that, we have to win games, but that's pretty impressive. He's done a really good job building this team. And, while people give us a hard time, we have in fact won the division the past 4 years.
well, I say just off the rip, I gotta guess that's the highest percentage in the league.
I would think so.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, just the odds that they're happy with that many of the players that they've drafted and groomed and developed. I mean, you can't. That's pretty good.
I think so. So that's my Bucks fun fact for today, but I'm pretty impressed.
I mean, look, it doesn't guarantee wins, but I mean, that's what you like. That's what I think everyone strives for and what they will want. So yeah, that's awesome.
I think it also speaks to the organization. And it's also kind of funny to me where I read a lot of, how much I read about football because I'm so obsessed, but
Mhm.
nobody ever talks about the Bucks. They just don't. And I don't think that you would have that kind of team if people weren't, happy to come here. And I think people like living in Tampa. I mean, it is a cool place to live, but
I think I think individual players get their flowers. You know, Mike Evans, Vita, other Levante over the years, right?
Tristan Wirfs.
And obviously, when Tom was there, that brought a lot of attention. And so, basically, especially for kind of if you're not New York, if you're not Chicago, if you're not LA, you got to win to get the shine, right? And that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, as we've discussed many times, what's wrong with Dallas? They don't win. Well, at least in the postseason. Anyway, we'll move on. So I believe today in our football fundamental segment, you are going to talk us through a little bit of defense.
Yes.
And then later we'll get into a little bit of what's gone on this week because there's been a lot.
Yeah.
So let's do defense.
Yeah. I just figured this week, before the season started, we kind of did several weeks on the offense. I better hit the defense a little bit before the season starts next week. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the defense. And basically, when you look at defense, everything obviously is from my experience as an offensive lineman and how I look. So I look at defenses from the front seven to the back end, right? So the front seven meaning the down linemen, the defensive linemen, defensive tackles, defensive ends, and the linebackers. Those are who I dealt with most often. So teams will typically choose between a 4-3 defense, when you hear that, meaning four defensive linemen, three linebackers, or a 3-4, which is three down linemen, four linebackers. And typically, obviously, that has to deal with the coach's philosophy. But sometimes, the Patriots come to mind over the years. Sometimes they've had a great number of almost hybrid type players who kind of play that outside linebacker, defensive end position where they can, from play to play, switch in and out of 4-3-3-4, which does cause a lot more confusion. I mean, ultimately, sometimes it's the same player, but how you block a 3-4 is, depending on the play, different than how you block a 4-3 defense, right? Four big guys and three linebackers versus three big guys and four linebackers. And so a lot of teams who like to play 3-4s is because they've got dynamic playmakers at that position, at those outside linebacker, defensive end hybrid positions. So you think of one of the guys who's just really killing it right now, a Micah Parsons type, right? Who,
Yeah.
and if you think about it, in that front seven, you're going to find your best athletes at those outside linebacker rush positions because what they're asked to do. Parsons is known for rushing the passer, but he's certainly involved in their coverage game as well sometimes. Not probably not quite as often because he's really established himself as one of the more dominant pass rushers in the league, and that's where he makes his bread and butter. But he is sometimes put in situations where he has to coverage, and so he's a phenomenal athlete. And
He's
um,
amazing. People are always afraid to meet up with him.
yes, well,
I think
that's the
he's
thing. Think about it.
one of the most feared, right?
He's got the ability to put pressure on a 300-pound offensive tackle and at the same time go cover your third receiver or your running back out of the backfield. So you got to be a tremendous athlete to be able to go from pushing on that heavy guy to backing up, backpedaling, getting in your drop zone. So you see a lot of great athletes at those outside positions. Uh, so let me start with the defensive line. So defensive linemen, the joke is that they don't have to be that smart. Certainly there are smart ones. But to be quite honest, they could not know anything about the defense they're running and have a linebacker line them up and tell them what to do the whole game. Like, really, I'm being honest here.
Are you sure that's not just an O lineman's perspective?
Well, no, it's not. But
Okay.
so defensive linemen are the first line of the defense, and their job is to defense, especially in the run game, are predicated on gap coverages. Defenses want to cover every gap, from the gaps between the center, both gaps between the guards and tackles, and so everyone is responsible for one of those gaps. Now, it's not played very often these days, but there's a defense called where the defensive line it's called two gapping. And what the defensive line will want to do is they want to mirror the feet of the offensive lineman as the play initiates, and then control the lineman almost like handlebars, because defensive linemen can use their hands, they can grab and mirror his movements, and then they're responsible for the gap on either side of them. It's not played as often nowadays. Nowadays, defensive linemen are more penetrators, where they want to get up the field a yard into the backfield through their gap. Now, they might not start up lined up over their gap. There's always, you'll see movement. You'll see defensive linemen switch rushing lanes where they're crossing. But ultimately, they're responsible for a gap. They want to penetrate and cause as much havoc and disruption to your offensive play as they can.
And you told us before a couple weeks ago that they don't have to set. The offensive linemen have to set and
Yes,
hold, but the
yes,
defensive line, they
no,
do not have to set.
they
Okay.
can be moving at the snap, which causes confusion for us sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even though he starts off at your guy on certain plays, if he moves to a certain position, you might have to go to the next guy over, right? So it causes confusion. Also, a moving target, you got some momentum behind you. You're going to hit with a little bit more oomph.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want to disrupt the blocking schemes of the offensive line. Offensive linemen very rarely, if ever, ultimately it becomes a one-on-one competition, but most things start with some type of a double team. You're getting help from your buddy. A play going away from you, your man is typically inside of you. It's difficult for you to block a man, get in front of a man who's inside of you as you're going away, right? So the guy, your guard, so if I'm the right tackle, the right guard, he's going to give me a little bit of help. He's going to try to pop that shoulder up of that defensive line. And so typically most plays start with some type of a double team. And defensive linemen love that because they want to free up those linebackers by gobbling up two or more players. So they can use their hands, so they can grab you. So you've got to be really strong as an offensive lineman trying to help your buddy, but not get caught up, because they're happy to let you double team a guy, which frees up their linebacker to make the plays. And that's what you see in terms of like inside linebackers. Think of a guy like a Ray Lewis, and I know it's not so much of a recent reference, but he's the one who comes to mind.
Everybody knows him.
Yeah, he's so
Everybody.
dominant
Yeah.
at doing it. Their defense was almost six across. It was almost like they were playing six defensive linemen. Everyone just protect Ray, let him run sideline to sideline and make every play.
And
so
he
that's
did.
Yeah, and he did, right? And so they almost want to every play for them pretty much is a pass rush. And so what they say is on the way to the quarterback, they find the football. So they penetrate a yard. It's not like they get to a yard and they stop. It's on their way to the quarterback. Hey, is this a run play? I got to find the football. Oh, it's not a run. I keep going to the quarterback, right? And so it does make it a little bit more, it's certain plays are zone plays for the offensive line where we almost want the defensive front to mirror our movement because it makes it easier, and then we just kind of take them where they want to go. But if a guy is just penetrating, it's a much more difficult block on certain plays when he's just trying to make a pile and free up the linebackers.
Yeah,
And then
that
you
makes
go to
sense.
the big difference. I think we talked sometimes about Sam, Mike, and Will, which is how offenses identify the strong side linebacker, middle linebacker, weak side linebacker. And there's a little bit different types. Your Wills are typically a little bit more svelte, I'll say, probably a little bit faster. And a lot of the defenses are designed to funnel everything to them because they are the guys who can run all day, make all the tackles. Like I said, very dynamic. Sometimes you'll get a guy like a Micah who can put his hand in the dirt and rush the passer. But all the plays are those are your playmakers on defense. And if
Right.
you're and look, there's plenty of guys on the back end, meaning the defensive backs that make plays. But if running plays are getting to your third level of defense, then you got big problems on defense, right? Defenses aren't designed typically for your safeties and quarterbacks to be making tackles, right? It's for that
Right.
second level of the defense, the linebackers to run up and stuff. So some of the top guys who I really love in the NFL right now, as far as the inside, like a Fred Warner, who just that San
Yeah.
Francisco defense, he is the stick that stirs the Kool-Aid, right? Because he's the heart and soul of that defense. And I remember him playing in the Super Bowl. He's playing out of his mind.
He
And
was.
so he's
If
one
he
of
could have
CJ.
willed that game to happen,
Yes.
he would have. Because,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Agree.
CJ Mosley is another guy that I really like. I love to watch him play with the Jets. Trying to think who else is out there that Roquan Smith.
Okay.
Yeah, he's another
Yeah.
one. I always liked him from the time he was at Georgia and just kind of followed his career. And you think about those classic, the Dick Buckuses. These are guys who play like that today and really bring that physicality to the position. Some of the best defensive tackles and defensive ends in the league. Right, Aaron Donald was just otherworldly.
I
Retired
wonder what he's going to
recently.
do. What is he going to do? Have
I'm
you
not
heard?
I haven't heard, but I'm sure he's going to have many opportunities because he just was such a dominant player, and
Yeah.
just his quickness, his anticipation of the snap, his ability to disrupt. That's what you don't want as an offense. You don't want that one guy. You have to identify. You see teams identifying the Mike linebacker, meaning the middle linebacker, which sets up your blocking scheme. But then there's sometimes you play a team who has a guy up front who you have to identify. Hey, where is Aaron Donald? Because he can single-handedly disrupt our whole game plan, and we won't
He
get
did.
anything
He
done
did
today.
that.
Yes,
He did that
absolutely,
to the Bucks when
absolutely.
the Bucks lost in the NFC Championship game to them. He was a beast. A
Right,
beast.
right. And like I said, very few plays, almost all plays end up one-on-one, but very few start with just 5 one-on-ones as an offense, even in pass blocking. And so, an Aaron Donald defense, the center, like perhaps on this particular play, I'm going to help the right tackle. I'm sorry, the right guard. But on this game, I'm going to shore you up initially, but I'm immediately going to help the guy who's got Aaron Donald, right? And we just kind of slide that protection to him
Right.
because we've got to get to, and as you see, he beats double teams, he beat triple teams, he beat triple teams, and then the back would chip and he'd still get, he was just, his talent was through the
Well,
roof.
he's a for sure first round Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah, not even
And I
close.
mean, but you know what's kind of cool about it? I mean, he was amazing to watch and exciting, and you're terrified of him. But I really respect the way he left the game. Like he's done. He didn't hem and haw. He
Yep.
didn't tease. I'm gonna do that. He just 10 years done.
And look, he would have been at the top of the game for another 5. I mean,
Definitely.
as long as he had wanted. But I think that's kind of the trend. Patrick Willis from the 49ers, who I thought was like, talking about great linebackers, was an incredible linebacker. And I think he might have got to his 8, maybe 9 years and just like, nope, this is it. I'm done. And part of it is, look, contracts are very lucrative now and they have that ability, but players are so much smarter about their health and
Right.
consequences down the road that they're just not willing to take. And good for them.
Yeah.
Good for, and the opportunities now off the field are greater in some cases for your average guy who retires. Like there's a lot of opportunity, and so you're right. Good for him. I'm glad he was able to do that and still have the career that he had.
So Vaughn, tell me, what does it mean when people say prevent defense only prevents you from winning? What does that mean?
So prevent defenses are designed to not let anything get behind them, not to give up the big play.
Is that even really a thing that's happening anymore? Like, I feel like I see more zone, or, I mean, is that prevent defense still a thing?
It's still a thing, and teams do use it sometimes. But the idea is that all game we've gotten the lead, and the other team has the ball with a chance to either tie or win. Now the whole game we've been playing an aggressive, up in your face defense. Now we're going to play a prevent defense, let you catch the ball in front of us, and try to tackle you before you get yards, but make sure nothing gets behind us. Well, teams now,
that's what happened. That's what happened when the Bucs lost in the NFC Championship game.
Okay. Right. And offenses are happy to, hey, we'll take that all day because we're not just going to push it to down the field if you're not going to let us. We'll take the underneath stuff, hurry up, get on the ball, and we'll just take chunk plays that way. And so that's the idea. We were very aggressive the whole game. Now in this 2-minute situation, we're going to play soft and let stuff get in. So I see the logic in not liking that, right?
James always says that, and I just always think it's funny.
but the trade-off is that if we do play an aggressive defense that we've been playing, it's the 2-minute. If we give up something behind us, a guy gets beat, a guy slips and falls, the game's over, the game's tied, right? So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, but that's what makes football so exciting, like we all say, any given Sunday, anything could happen. And who's to say prevent defense doesn't let you win? I don't know. It depends.
Well, look, a lot of teams sit in nickel defenses, meaning 5 defensive backs, 2 linebackers, or dimes even, where there's 6 DBs and 1 linebacker all game long, right? So it just depends on the coach, the overall team philosophy, his philosophy. Personnel has a lot to do with that as well. Hey, where are we in terms of our health, for not just for the season, but for this particular game? Do we have a guy go down? Can we not play the normal aggressive coverages I want to play? Sometimes it's not just about, hey, I'm making the decision to play a little bit softer. Sometimes other factors dictate what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm choking.
Oh, no.
I don't know what happened there. So speaking of defense, I texted you during the Chargers game.
Yes.
That was pretty exciting to see that guy, Tony Jefferson.
Yeah, he had a great game.
Such a kick-ass game.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he made the team. I didn't hear that he was cut, but I really haven't looked at the Chargers. But he had played with all these other teams and retired, and he was a scout for the Ravens, and then he came back, and I guess just this year. But what did he have? Like 3 interceptions or something? I mean, it was very
exciting.
Sack. Yeah, a sack. Yeah, he just was like,
he was all over the place.
It.
Yeah,
killing it.
Well, look, he was playing like that desperation that you have to play with to make that final roster cut, because the margins are so very thin. Because you look at, and I'm sure guys who it's happened to, they look over and it's like, athletically, I'm either right there or I'm not far behind. If like the margins are so thin versus, and I would often look at that the guy. Fortunately, I was in a position where I never got cutting that. I mean, the Grim Reaper always comes for us ultimately, but but throughout most of my career, I'd look at something that's like, look at how athletic that guy is, and he's not going to make this team, right? So
Yeah.
the margins, it's a game of inches, like they say.
So, what else about the defense do we need to know this week?
I think that's good for now. Like, that's a good introduction to the front seven, the strength positions. Next week and going forward, I'll hit the back end, the skill position, and just kind of bring it all together. And yeah, that's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So fundamentals, check.
Yes.
Now we'll move into football frenzy.
Yes.
So much. So much. So things that I wrote down to discuss during the frenzy. Number one, I am not a fan of the new Washington uniforms. Just putting that out there. I don't understand them at all. Did you like them?
No, I haven't liked them for a while. Just the W was just so nondescript, and then black doesn't work for everyone, right? Like we kind of talked about, if you're the Raiders, it works all the time, every time.
Yes.
The Ravens, it works for the but I don't really care for it.
And then on the sideline, they were there in their black uniforms, and then when they put their hats on, when they were done, they were garnet hats. I'm like, no, no, that is just not a good look.
Yeah,
so
I
agree.
was
displeased with the Washington uniform.
I agree 100%. Not a fan.
On the flip side, this is what I was texting you that whole game. I don't know. I guess it was, I don't know. I was just very moved by a lot of things during that game. On the flip side, Jaden Daniels' chain.
Oh, yeah.
It was like this thick. And very, very diamond-y.
Yes.
So, and then you said something funny. What did you say? What did you say about that chain? Something about
NFL starter kit.
Yes. Did you? I mean, I know we've talked about jewelry before when we were talking about Justin Jefferson, but did you? I mean, was it that prevalent when you played these giant, like thick, very expensive looking chains?
I don't think chain culture had progressed to that level, but there was definitely a little bit of bling going on. But yeah, nothing like that. That was fantastic.
If he has that on when he's playing, I'm gonna freak out. I mean,
I always marveled at what guys would wear either on their ears or around their necks, and I don't know how you do it.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I don't either. Speaking of things that people are, I guess in my head, I'm picturing dangling jewelry, but what is with the dangling mouthpieces and multiple mouthpieces? Have you noticed that? There's one guy, he had two mouthpieces just dangling. They weren't in his mouth, and they were like fluorescent colors. Is there something I'm missing? What's happening there?
Honestly, I'll just say, who knows, because it's such an individual thing, right? I remember there was a period in time where I didn't wear a mouthpiece, and it took quite a while. It took almost a year and a half, but at one point, I was on the backside of a play running after a linebacker, and his heel came up and caught me in my face mask, and I bit my tongue. And from that point on, I wore a mouthpiece.
Oh my God! Did you have to have stitches?
No. It wasn't that bad, but it hurt.
It hurts
for at least a week. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
But you know what? Because what I have noticed is that nowadays they make very interesting mouthpieces in terms of color, design. And so perhaps guys just, one other way to differentiate themselves from the pack, and, who knows?
There's those mouthpieces that like are scary, like fangs.
Yeah, fangs. And
that would intimidate me.
They have mouthpieces that look like grills nowadays.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they do a little bit of everything.
Okay, I also wrote down Oh, I have a question. So what is the typical practice squad salary? So the guys that are that
Mhm.
were cut and then being picked back up for the practice squad, like what kind of money are they making? Do they have to have other jobs? Is it like minor league baseball, or are
No,
they
no, no.
making
They're making pretty good money. So uh, you can have up to 16 players, 10 of which have to be either rookies or second year players. And those rookie and
and I think a foreign player
yeah,
now.
because there's the foreign program, right?
Yeah.
And those rookie and second year players, their minimum is 12.5 per week, right?
Wow. Okay.
So if you stick around for the entire season, that's pretty good money. The
Yeah.
other six spots, there's no restrictions on year. It could be whoever they want to have on their practice squad. And their minimum, I believe, is 16.8, something like that, 16.5,
Okay.
16.8, somewhere in there. And then the maximum a practice squad player can make is 21.5, basically.
So yeah, that's a good job. That's
Yeah,
still a good
yeah. And
job.
so, like, 16, 17 weeks. And you can teams can sign other teams' practice squad players,
Right.
but they have to be signed. You can't sign them for your practice squad. If you're going to sign someone else's player, he has to go to the active roster, right? So
Okay.
there's some protections in it for the players where, hey, I've got to make this. I'm kind of in the mix over here. Like they're trying to develop me clearly, but this team wants to sign me. What's my guarantee that I'm going to make a wise decision and give up the familiarity of the team I'm with going to the well, that's it. You have to be signed to the active roster. So
I see.
yeah, that makes a
Okay.
difference. So and which counts because if you stick around for the 3 weeks, you get your year. It takes three
Yeah.
games on the. There's a million different designations, but I'll just for the sake of this conversation say 3 games on the active roster for that to count as a year towards your pension,
Oh,
towards
okay.
your year. This is my X number of years in the league, all that type of stuff. So
Right.
yeah, so it matters.
It does matter.
Yeah.
Um then also in that game, I wrote down helmet, belt line, what? So
Uh,
there was something about like what is do you know what I'm talking about? What does
I,
that mean?
I've, I've been a victim of this several times. Yeah, so
Okay.
I imagine you're talking about that the offensive linemen, our helmets have to break the belt line of the center.
Yes.
Other yes.
That's what it was.
Otherwise, we're considered in the backfield and it's an illegal formation, and I've been called for that. So obvious passing downs, you're trying to get as much real estate as you can. You're trying to get off the line as much as you can, but your helmet has to break the belt line of the center. Otherwise, and typically what will happen is the first time the line judge will come, hey, number 70, got to scoot up, watch yourself. It's rare that they'll just call it on you without giving you that warning. Well, if you continue to do it, then they're going to throw the flag on
Okay.
you. Yeah.
I was like, what the heck does that? I have never heard that. So that's good to know.
So it's kind of like you try to move back with your feet, and then spatially you try to lean as far forward as you can, right? to have that helmet break that belt line.
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah,
That's really a lot to think about. And then you have to like look at this guy's belt and that's crazy. And then another thing that I wrote down, what is the difference between the pup list and IR?
Okay. So IR is the injured reserve list. And back in the day, it used to be the way that teams would kind of hide players. Like, hey, you're not ready for the active roster, but we really like you. How's your knee feeling? Right? But now the way it works is if you're on PUP, physically unable to perform, both those designations mean you have football related injuries, right? And PUP has to be designated before you show up to training camp. So it's perhaps you got hurt during off-season workouts, during the OTAs, and you come in, and it means that if you're on PUP, you count against the roster. It counts as a roster spot, and you have to sit out, I believe, the first 4. It might be 6.
I think it's 4 because I noticed Nick Chubb is on the pup list, and I believe
Okay.
it said 4 weeks,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's costly for them.
Yeah. So you have to sit out those 4 games, but once you're medically cleared, you go right back to the active roster, and your salary counts against the salary cap. And with IR, if you're designated for IR during training camp or before, you're done for the year.
Okay.
But once the 53-man roster happens, if you get designated on IR, you can be designated to return once, but you have to sit out a minimum of 4 games, and then you can be designated to return, and you can come back.
Okay.
And I believe, I want to say they can do that 8 to 10 times, or with 8 or to 10 different guys throughout the course. I believe if you make the playoffs, then you get an extra 2 times, which is where the 8 to 10 times comes in. But now, back in my day, there was no designation to return. Once you went on IR, you were on IR. That was it. But this recent, I want to say in the last 2 or 3 years, that rule was changed where they can designate you for IR. Once the season starts, you can get on IR and you can be designated to return.
So if someone gets hurt and they're going to miss, 2 to 3 weeks, they
Yeah.
don't have to be designated.
They probably wouldn't be. No, it's
It's more like
week,
a
week to
6
week.
to 8 week or injury,
Yes,
kind of injury. Okay.
exactly. So my 5th year, I broke my leg. We hadn't been in the playoff in a couple of years, and so we were kind of, hey, let's see how the season goes before we put you on IR. And we were kind of in the mix for everything, and then by the end of the year, it was pretty evident we weren't going to make the playoffs. So I said, okay, this was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks later. Hey, at this point, we're just going to put you on IR because let's not bring you back if we don't really have a shot for the playoffs. So
Got it.
yeah.
And then sometimes you see guys go out on the IR, but they may be ready for the playoffs. And that would be the
Yes.
hope, like that you could
Yes.
get them back for the
Exactly.
playoffs. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our favorite, subject, Tom Brady. Not my favorite
And it's
subject,
just happenstance,
but he's
right? He just
always
makes the
in the
news.
news.
I know, right? Exactly.
So how does this man just get around everything? I mean, really. So now, because he might become a part owner of the Raiders, like that's still not done yet. But so now there's restrictions, so he can't go in and talk to players. So
Yep.
how is this going to affect his broadcasting?
I imagine because I don't think you can regulate what someone tells someone else. So I think some of the information will be passed on secondhand, I'm guessing.
Okay.
And then I think for them, there's the juice is worth the squeeze just to have Tom Brady being the
It makes me mad, Vaughn.
I think it's worth it for
Poor
them to have
Greg
him.
Olson. Poor Greg Olson.
No, Greg Olson's going to be fine. He's done very well for himself, and he's valued very highly, and so he's going to be fine. But you get Tom Brady, the GOAT, right? And it's worth the hoops that they'll have to jump through for the broadcast to have him call the games. It just is.
He's not allowed to criticize officials
or the refs. He's not allowed to go into other teams' facilities. Now, for me, if it's a choice between the two, I think it's a no-brainer. Like adios broadcast career, because ownership is just so rare that guys get those opportunities. And I'm not sure. I think we might have briefly mentioned it, but Tom is bringing Richard Seymour with him. And the Raider did, at least last time I checked, last time I heard, which is awesome. Yes, and I don't know if it's Tom. Yeah, I'm assuming it's his relationship that Tom's bringing him along, and just he's got the wherewithal to do it. But it's so rare for former players to have those opportunities. So I think and it doesn't sound like they're going to make him choose, but I'm just saying if it came down to it, I would think
No,
he'd
because
make them.
he can do anything. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to say something very narcissistic for a
Okay.
moment. But I feel like Tom Brady has been put on this earth to torture me. Because of course, what team is he going to be part owner of? The Raiders, my second favorite team.
You
Tom.
can't get rid of them, huh?
Tom. I was listening to what was that podcast? Calm Down with Erin Andrews and that other girl, Clarissa. I can never remember her name.
Clarissa
And
Thompson.
they were talking to Kevin Burkhardt. He's going to be Tom Brady's partner in the booth.
Okay.
Forget his last name, but it was a pretty interesting little conversation. And I guess Kevin they went to, and at that last game, the last preseason game, they were in Dallas for that. He said they got to the field at 1:00. Everybody and their mother wanted to say something to Tom Brady. He said they had 15 minutes to get from the field to the booth. He's like, we have to go. The game is starting. We need to be in the booth. They didn't get any of the pregame interviews done. Nothing happened because everybody wanted to say hi to Tom Brady and have something to say to him. So they're thinking now every game that they broadcast, they're going to have to get to the field at the crack of dawn.
Yes.
Just to be able to get to the booth and be ready to go.
You know what I thought about though also, because those pregame interviews I think do matter and help the broadcast in terms of providing context for different things that happen throughout the game. But if Tom Brady prepares the way it seemed like he prepared for games, then I think they won't be missing very much, right? And like I said, his partner can do the interviews. He can fill him in on certain things. Tom Brady's just knowledge of the game and how it flows, how it works. I think.
Well, and Erin Andrews will be on the sideline, so they have their best sideline reporter.
Yeah, I think it'll be worth a watch. I'm not sure. I think right now for me, the gold standard is Troy and Joe Buck, but but that might, I don't know, maybe that's a UCLA thing. I might be biased.
No, I like them too. I really do. I like them too. But back to Greg Olsen for a moment. Just before we started, I was looking at some NFL stuff, and it's Greg Olsen. Who was that other player for the Carolina? Not Nick Lachey. Something Lukey.
Oh,
there's three Carolina players.
Luke Keith. Luke Keith. I know what you're talking about, the linebacker.
Okay, so there's 3 Carolina players who are coaching middle school football. So cute.
Is that right?
Yeah, very cute.
Luke Keith. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
I'll look it up again. And then, so 3 other little things for the frenzy. Notable cuts. Frank Gore Jr.
I saw that.
That's a little his dad is major, and they cut him. Ouch.
I mean, he's got to make it on his own, right? I'll tell you what, it wasn't like in past years where I just saw big I didn't really notice very many big names.
Me neither.
I think there's some players. Obviously, there's players out there who will help plenty of teams, and they're getting calls right now. But I didn't just see in past year where you're just you're shocked. Oh, that guy, that guy. But yeah. I mean, Zabby, I saw got cut. But yeah, what'd you think?
That was the one that really caught my eye. And then. Washington cut Sam, is it Bradford, the guy from Notre Dame with the beautiful hair? He was their last draft pick. He was the quarterback that looked at Notre Dame, he looked like he was 40 because he had this full beard and mustache and that beautiful hair. He got cut.
Oh, man.
But it didn't seem to be there. Yeah, I agree. There was no like
Yeah,
shocking, moment. Um, Brazil, the game in Brazil with Green Bay and Philadelphia doesn't seem to be terribly popular with the players. I was reading that at least with the Eagles, they have this big meeting and all the do's and don'ts, and basically stay near the hotel, and that's a really long way to go
yeah.
for a game. I'm just wondering if that's like, and it's opening weekend. It seems a little odd.
Um, I'll tell you what, and again, I just got to speak from my experience. I played in 3 games overseas. I played in Berlin, I played in Sydney, and I played in Tokyo.
Sydney?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That was a big one.
All mine were preseason, but you reach a point in your career where you don't want to travel anywhere. You don't want to. If you live in New York, you don't want to travel to Philadelphia, right?
Right.
You want 17 home games. And
Yeah.
so to travel to Brazil and then to have, I'm sure some of the restrictions are going to have. And look, because here's the thing, right? Because I'm sure those guys want, the wife wants to go and the kids want to go. And look, for you, it's a work week, right? You're not going to be out there sightseeing throughout the. Granted, I'm sure they'll have plenty of free time to explore a bit, but it's a work week for them. So
Well,
no, I'm
plus
sure.
it's not like they have a bye the next week. It's week
Right?
1.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
when the Bucks went to Munich last year or the year before, I believe they had a bye the week after. So, that makes a little more sense, like if you're going to
Hmm.
go that far.
Yeah.
So I was pretty surprised. Like there was a lot of guys who said no comment, like they're just not, they don't seem to be that into it.
I'm sure maybe there's safety issues. I mean, I'm not exactly sure, but look, the NFL needs to grow the game like any business wants to grow, and there's probably a certain saturation that's hit in the U.S., and so you got to go outside of the U.S., and which is why
Yeah.
there's what 6 to 8 games in Europe
Yeah.
now every year, and so yeah,
And
it's just
Mexico.
the next evolution.
Yeah, so we'll see. That'll be interesting to watch. And then I sent you guys. So, we were talking about fitness, F for fitness. We've talked about Pilates before, and I'm
Mhm.
an avid Pilates person, 10 years doing Pilates. I love it. Um and it's definitely become a thing in football. And I was laughing a couple weeks ago when Dexter Lawrence, a big player for the Giants, said he made that funny comment like, that Pilates got me right, or something, after he made a big play. So I was laughing and I started looking up, football and Pilates. And I know Sean Murphy Bunting does Pilates. I know Joe Tryon here does Pilates. So I looked up, okay, what are these guys all doing in Pilates? And I sent it to my Pilates teacher and I'm like, can I do any of these things? And she's like, you do these things all the time. And I'm like, but do I do them like this? She's like, she had to explain to me. She goes, well, now Kim, my Pilates teacher's name is Colette. She's amazing. I love her so much. And she's always very honest with me, and I can do a lot of things. I am pretty good at Pilates, but I'm like, I feel like I don't look like this when I do Pilates. She goes, well, Kim, football players are, bigger than you, and they're stronger than you. So yes, some of these things you can do, but you cannot do them like that.
Like that.
So I sent you and Ashton the 2 things that I did, probably master. So if you want to see them, they're probably out there. They're pretty funny. But I mean, Pilates, the strength Pilates requires, I think people would be shocked about the strength that it requires and how hard it really is. But yeah, I just was like, okay, I felt like I've been doing Pilates for 10 years and I'll never be able to do it the way these guys are doing it. But if you needed a laugh, but also I think, pretty impressive. I think I managed
Oh
those
no,
couple of
absolutely.
things pretty well.
I
And I was
respect your
really
game.
sore. the next day because I did that back extension to
Yeah.
video like 8 times. And then my lats and I was like, I'm still actually feeling it. So yeah, so fitness, Pilates, and I think it's great for all the players that are doing it because obviously just in terms of the flexibility that it provides them and for Dexter to say that Pilates got me right.
Yeah, that
That
core
Pilates
strength when
can get you right too, anybody.
when some big guy's pushing on you, that core strength comes into play, right? You're trying to
Sure.
twist and
Yeah.
turn, and absolutely.
Yeah, I bet you it does prevent some injury too because you really
Sure.
like the way you train your body and yeah. But those players, the video I sent you guys was Kansas City doing it before the Super Bowl, and it was almost like beautiful to watch, like very graceful, very very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. You know, the other thing it brings to mind too is that, like I said, the margins are so slim. Guys will look for any edge they can get, and Pilates is one that a lot of guys do. I remember, I remember growing up, and you hear about, oh, Lynn Swan does ballet, right?
Yep.
But again, it doesn't matter what it is. Guys will do it if they think it'll give them an edge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really true. It is like the Pilates is the new ballet because
Mm-hmm.
also Walter Payton did ballet, Willie Galt did
Mm-hmm.
ballet. Yeah, yeah. So Pilates is the new ballet for
Yeah.
football. So that was kind of my funny thing. So what anything non-football related that happened with you? Family, food, fun,
No,
anything?
just Maddie will be home in a couple days. Been on the phone with her the last couple days. Her mom is up there helping her move back, and so just it's going to come off completely sexist, I know, but two adult women sometimes occupying the same small space is interesting. That's all I'll say. That's all. That's how I'll put it.
Okay, you're gonna
And
have to
Maddie,
tell me more
especially,
about that.
and especially for Maddie, because over the last year she's established her own life,
Right.
and now she's moving home, but it's just for a brief time until she makes her
Yeah.
next move. But it's like
Yeah.
she's had her whole life up there for this whole year, establishing herself, young woman in the world, and now mom's around.
It's hard. It's hard. Elizabeth was here for 3 weeks, and now she's back in Miami, and it is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to it's walk that fine line and then see them go. But
Yes.
I bet you're excited for her to be home.
Yeah. I got my lunch buddy back.
Yeah, so you'll have some good food stories for us coming
Yes,
up.
definitely.
I actually have a good food story. We Wednesday night I had to be downtown for a photo shoot for our Tampa Bay fashion experience that's coming up. And we went to eat at this restaurant called Oak and Ola. It's
Mm-hmm.
in Armature Works, which is a very cool like food hall right down on the Hillsborough River. But Okanola is a sit down restaurant there, and I got to tell you, it was delicious.
Okay.
It, yeah, so good, so good. And the service was excellent. They had these great cocktails. My mom had a Julia Child inspired buried treasure, I think it was called, and it was yummy. Gin and strawberry prosecco, and very, very refreshing. The food was great. I had a panzanella salad. I know, not that exciting, but it was really good. But James had a pork chop that was like the size of my face. So, and then I think he had it for dinner last night as well. So that was good. Oak and Ola in Tampa. Highly recommend. Quite delicious.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of two things. I do have two quick food things. One is because I thought about you the other day because I decided I'm trying to have kind of do like a meatless Monday type of deal.
Okay.
Not necessarily every Monday, but more often than I do it now. And I had cilantro lime rice with and I added pesto and sun dried tomatoes. Loved it. It was really good.
Interesting. So you
Yeah.
made that yourself?
Yes. It was
Good.
really good. And then the other, which I don't know, take it. Are you familiar with all dressed ruffles?
No. Ruffles potato chips?
Ruffles potato chips. The flavor is all dressed. It's a Canadian thing.
No,
You
never
can't
heard
get
of
at least.
it.
I'm not sure where in the states you can get them. Maybe you can get them somewhere, but you can't get them down here. You can get. I can always get them when I go up to Canada, and so I'm having Maddie bring me several bags back down, and they are
What? But
whatever you're.
what does that even mean? Like, what's the flavor?
It's every flavor. It's everything. All dressed like
So,
everything,
like
and
an
they're
everything bagel kind of thing?
yeah, but it's like so it's very vinegary, right? So there's
Okay.
so all the flavors and the closest thing I can find down here, they have this. It's called Dirty Chips is the brand, and they have a flavor called Funky Fusion, but it's not the same, right? Because Ruffles really do have the best chips. I don't know what it is about those ridges,
They're
but
good.
it's Ruffles all dressed, and I'm having her bring me. And so she calls me this morning, as a matter of fact, and says, "Dad, I've been up here for a year, and I've been wasting my time. I went and got your chips, and I bought a small bag for myself. These things are amazing. I could have been having these for the whole year."
All right.
And
Well, you're gonna
so
have to show us that bag so we know what
well,
we're looking at.
well, to that point, I said, "Babe, I hope the chips make it, but I understand if they don't. Like if you're on the plane, and you get a little snacky. I'll understand if the chips don't make it down." So
Okay,
those are
good.
my
Well,
two food things.
we're gonna learn more about those next week.
Yes.
But we are now at time. So next week is it. Football, real
Yes.
football. Not that preseason wasn't real. We've covered that, but it's back, baby. So
Yes.
can't wait to talk about it next week. And thank you for that defensive lesson. And we'll be on the lookout for all of that. And as usual, it was great. Thank you, Vaughn.
Thank you.
And everyone who has been so kind as to listen and watch us, please give us a like and a follow on all of our social media platforms, but first football. And we thank you. Goodbye.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.